My son told me I'm a burden and should leave until I became his boss.
My name is Emily, and at 68 years old, I never thought my own son would look me in the eye and call me a burden. But that's exactly what happened on a scorching Tuesday afternoon in Dallas, Texas, when the words that shattered my world came tumbling out of his mouth like venom. "Mom, you're a burden. You need to leave." Those 8 words changed everything. But let me tell you how a woman who gave everything for her family became the boss of the very son who tried to throw her away. I raised Marcus in this same house where he now lives with his wife, Jennifer. 43 years ago, when his father walked out on us, leaving nothing but empty beer bottles and unpaid bills, I worked 3 jobs to keep food on our table. I cleaned offices at night, waited tables during lunch shifts, and took in laundry on weekends. My hands were raw, my back ached constantly, and I barely slept 4 hours a night. But Marcus was my world. I sacrificed everything, my social life, my dreams of finishing college, even relationships with good men who wanted to marry me, all so my boy could have what he needed. I attended every baseball game, helped with every school project, and saved every penny for his college education. I believed in family loyalty. I believed that when you love someone unconditionally, they love you back the same way. I believed that the sacrifices I made would mean something when I got older. I was wrong. After my retirement from the school district, where I'd worked as a secretary for 25 years, Marcus invited me to move in with him and Jennifer. "We want to take care of you, Mom," he'd said, his smile warm and reassuring. "You've done enough for us." For 2 years, everything seemed perfect. I helped around the house, cooked family dinners, and babysat their twin daughters, Sophia and Grace, whenever they needed. I thought I was contributing to our family unit, being useful, being loved. But apparently, I was just being a burden. The confrontation started over something so trivial. I'd accidentally used Jennifer's expensive face cream, thinking it was hand lotion. My arthritis makes it hard to read small labels sometimes, and I'd simply made an honest mistake. But Jennifer's reaction was explosive. "Emily, that cream costs more than your entire monthly grocery budget," she screamed, her face turning crimson. "You can't just take whatever you want." I apologized immediately, offering to replace it with money from my small pension, but Marcus walked into the kitchen at that exact moment. Instead of defending me, instead of telling his wife to calm down, he turned on me with a fury I'd never seen before. "Mom, this is exactly what Jennifer has been talking about. You don't respect our things. You don't respect our space." "Marcus, honey, I just made a mistake." "It's not just this," he interrupted, pacing around the kitchen island like a caged animal. "You leave your newspapers all over the living room. You cook foods that make the whole house smell like an old folks' home. You watch your shows too loud. Jennifer can't even have friends over because they ask who the old lady is." Each word hit me like a physical blow. I watched my son, the boy I rocked to sleep when he had nightmares, the teenager I'd driven to baseball practice at dawn, the young man I'd helped through college, transform into someone I didn't recognize. "And don't get me started on how you discipline the girls," Jennifer added, crossing her arms. "They're not your children, Emily. You don't get to tell them what to do." "I've never overstepped," I began, but Marcus cut me off again.
You have. You told Grace she couldn't have cookies before dinner last week. You made Sophia clean up her toys when Jennifer said she could leave them out. You're confusing them about who's in charge. My heart was breaking with each accusation. I'd only been trying to help, to be a good grandmother, to contribute to the household that I thought welcomed me. "Where is this coming from?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I thought we were happy. I thought you wanted me here." Marcus laughed, actually laughed, and it was the cruelest sound I'd ever heard. "Happy? Mom, do you know what our friends say? They pity us. Poor Marcus and Jennifer, stuck with his old mother. We can't go on vacations because we can't leave you alone. We can't have dinner parties because you'll want to join in. We can't even be intimate in our own home because you're always here." The room spun around me. I gripped the counter to steady myself, feeling like I might collapse. "Jennifer's been patient," Marcus continued, his voice getting louder. "But enough is enough. You're a burden, Mom, a dead weight dragging down our lives. You need to leave." "Leave?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "Leave and go where? This is my home too. You invited me here. Find an apartment. Find a senior community. I don't care where, but you can't stay here anymore," Jennifer said, her tone matter of fact, like she was discussing the weather. "We'll help you pack."
I looked at my son, really looked at him, searching for any trace of the loving boy I'd raised. But his eyes were cold, distant, like he was looking at a stranger he wanted to get rid of. "After everything I've done for you," I said, my voice growing stronger despite the tears streaming down my face, "after every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every dollar I spent on you instead of myself, this is how you repay me?" "That was your choice, Mom. I never asked you to do any of that, and now it's my choice to ask you to leave." Those were the words that shattered what was left of my heart. My own son denying the love I'd poured into his life, acting like my sacrifices meant nothing. I retreated to my bedroom, the guest room that had become my sanctuary, and closed the door with shaking hands. The afternoon sun streamed through the thin curtains, casting long shadows across the floor that seemed to mock my isolation. I could hear Jennifer and Marcus talking in hushed, urgent whispers downstairs, probably planning how quickly they could get rid of me. The silence in that room was deafening. For the first time in 2 years, I truly understood how unwanted I was. Every sound in the house, the refrigerator humming, the air conditioner cycling on, the distant traffic on the Dallas highways, seemed to emphasize my loneliness. I sat on the edge of the bed, my arthritic hands clasped tightly in my lap, and let the reality wash over me. At 68 years old, I was homeless. My own son had thrown me away like yesterday's newspaper. The physical pain was almost unbearable. My chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing my ribs with iron bands. My throat burned from holding back sobs, and my hands trembled uncontrollably. I hadn't felt this devastated since the day Marcus's father left us. But this was somehow worse. At least then, I'd had my son to live for. Now, even he had abandoned me. I looked around the room at my meager possessions, a few photos on the nightstand, my reading glasses, the romance novels I'd collected over the years, my mother's jewelry box that I'd treasured for decades. Everything that represented my life could fit into a couple of suitcases. How had I become so small, so insignificant?
The smell of Jennifer's expensive candles drifted under the door, vanilla and sandalwood, a constant reminder that this wasn't really my home. I'd been fooling myself, thinking I belonged here. The house had never smelled like my cooking anymore, never echoed with my laughter, never felt like the place where I'd raised my son. Evening came and no one called me for dinner. I could hear the family eating together downstairs. Marcus's deep voice, Jennifer's sharp laugh, the girls chattering about their day at school. They were having family time, and I wasn't included. The message was crystal clear. I wasn't family anymore. My stomach growled, but I couldn't bring myself to go downstairs. The thought of facing Marcus and Jennifer, of pretending everything was normal, made me feel physically sick. Instead, I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, watching the headlights from passing cars sweep across the white paint like searchlights looking for something lost. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Marcus's voice saying those terrible words. "You're a burden, Mom, a dead weight dragging down our lives." How could the child I'd loved more than my own life speak to me that way? How could the man I'd sacrificed everything for show such cruelty? I thought about calling my sister Margaret in Houston, but what would I say? That I'd failed as a mother? That the son I'd bragged about for years had kicked me out? The shame was suffocating. By 3 a.m, I was sitting by the window, looking out at the quiet street where I'd once felt safe and welcome. The Texas heat still radiated from the pavement, even in the early morning hours, and the streetlights cast everything in an eerie orange glow. I felt like a ghost haunting a life that was no longer mine. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the realization that I'd been blind to it for months, maybe years. All those times Jennifer had made subtle comments about my presence. All those moments when Marcus had seemed irritated by my attempts to help. All those family decisions made without consulting me. I'd ignored every sign because I'd wanted so desperately to believe I was wanted. But I wasn't wanted. I was tolerated at best, resented at worst. And now, even the tolerance was gone. The morning sun was harsh and unforgiving when I finally dragged myself out of bed. My reflection in the bathroom mirror showed a broken woman, red-rimmed eyes, gray hair disheveled, shoulders slumped in defeat. But as I stared at myself, something shifted inside me. I remembered my mother's voice from years ago. "Emily, never let anyone make you smaller than you are. You're stronger than you know." Suddenly, I wasn't seeing a burden. I was seeing a survivor, a woman who'd raised a son alone, who'd worked multiple jobs to put food on the table, who'd built a life from nothing after being abandoned. Marcus might have forgotten my strength, but I hadn't. I walked to my dresser and pulled out a small wooden box I kept hidden beneath my sweaters. Inside were documents I hadn't looked at in years: bank statements, investment records, property deeds. After my retirement, I'd been careful with money, living simply and investing my pension wisely. I wasn't the helpless old woman Marcus thought I was. The first document I pulled out made my heart race. The deed to Marcus's house. I'd forgotten, truly forgotten,
that when he'd bought this house 15 years ago, he couldn't qualify for the mortgage alone. I'd co-signed and put down the entire $40,000 down payment from my savings. My name was right there, black ink on white paper, as co-owner. But there was more, much more. I pulled out statements from my investment account, money I'd saved religiously over the past 20 years. The balance made me gasp. Between my careful investments and the life insurance payout from my late husband's policy, I had accumulated over $300,000. I wasn't poor. I wasn't dependent. I was actually quite well off.
My hands shook as I found another document, the incorporation papers for the small cleaning company I'd started after retirement. What had begun as a way to stay busy had grown into something profitable. I had 12 employees now, all immigrant women I'd trained personally, and we serviced some of the largest office buildings in Dallas. The monthly income was substantial. How had I let Marcus and Jennifer make me feel like a charity case? How had I forgotten my own accomplishments, my own worth? I picked up my phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. "Margaret, it's Emily. I need to see you today. It's urgent." My sister arrived 3 hours later, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the Texas heat. Margaret had always been the tougher of us two, running her own real estate empire in Houston. She took one look at me and knew something was seriously wrong. "What did that ungrateful son of yours do now?" she asked, settling into the chair across from my bed. I told her everything, the confrontation, the cruel words, the demand that I leave. Margaret's face grew darker with each detail. "And you're just going to let him throw you out?" she asked when I finished. "What choice do I have?" Margaret laughed, not cruelly like Marcus had, but with genuine amusement. "Emily, honey, do you realize what you've just told me? Your son, the one calling you a burden, is living in a house you helped buy, demanding you leave property you legally own." The truth hit me like lightning. I owned half this house. Marcus had been paying the mortgage, yes, but I was listed as co-owner on the deed. He couldn't just kick me out of my own property. "But there's more," I said, showing her the investment statements and business documents. Margaret's eyes widened as she examined each paper. "Emily, you're not broke. You're rich. And this cleaning company, do you know who your biggest client is?" I shook my head, suddenly realizing I'd been so hands-off with the day-to-day operations that I'd lost track of some details. Margaret pulled out her phone and started making calls. Within an hour, she'd gathered information that changed everything. "Your cleaning company has a contract with Sterling and Associates," she said, a slow smile spreading across her face. "That's the law firm where Marcus works. In fact, according to my contact there, your company has been servicing their offices for the past 18 months. Marcus's paycheck literally depends on a business you own." My head spun as the implications became clear. Marcus worked for a company that paid my business. The son who called me a burden was financially dependent on me in ways he didn't even realize. But Margaret wasn't done. And Jennifer's boutique downtown, the one she's so proud of, I did some checking. The building is owned by Riverside Properties, a company I know well because I've done deals with them. They've been looking for a cash buyer for months because the current owner wants to retire. The plan formed in my mind like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. I had the money to buy that building. I could become Jennifer's landlord overnight. For the first time in days, I smiled. Really smiled. Margaret, I need you to make some calls, and then I need you to help me pack, not because I'm leaving in shame, but because I'm moving out in strength. My sister grinned back at me. Now that's the Emily I remember. What do you need me to do?
The next week moved like a perfectly choreographed dance. While Marcus and Jennifer assumed I was scrambling to find some run-down apartment, I was orchestrating something far more elegant. Margaret handled the property purchase with surgical precision. By Wednesday, I owned the building that housed Jennifer's precious boutique. By Friday, I'd bought a beautiful penthouse apartment in the most exclusive complex in Dallas, the same one where Jennifer had always dreamed of living, but could never afford. But the real masterstroke came through my cleaning company. I'd instructed my manager, Rosa, to schedule a routine inspection of the Sterling and Associates offices where Marcus worked. What he didn't know was that I'd be conducting it personally. Monday morning, I walked into that gleaming law firm wearing my best navy suit, my silver hair professionally styled, carrying a leather portfolio that screamed success. The receptionist didn't recognize me. Why would she? I was just another businesswoman to her. Marcus was in the conference room when I arrived, sitting at the head of a long table surrounded by junior lawyers. Through the glass walls, I watched him gesture confidently, clearly in his element, totally unaware that his world was about to shift. "Excuse me," I said, stepping into the conference room with Rosa beside me. "I'm Emily Harrison, owner of Harrison Cleaning Services. We're conducting our quarterly review." The blood drained from Marcus's face so fast I thought he might faint. His colleagues looked between us curiously. Clearly, they had no idea of our relationship. "I wasn't aware the owner would be coming personally," Marcus stammered, his confident demeanor cracking. "I like to take personal interest in my largest accounts," I replied smoothly. "Rosa, please begin the inspection. I'll speak with Mr. Reynolds privately." Marcus followed me into the hallway on shaking legs. The moment we were alone, his mask slipped completely. "Mom, what are you doing here? I thought you were looking for an apartment." "Oh, I found one. A lovely penthouse, actually. But that's not why I'm here." I opened my portfolio and showed him a contract. "I'm here to discuss the cleaning service agreement between your firm and my company. Did you know you've been dependent on your burden of a mother for the past 18 months? His eyes widened as he read the document, seeing my name as the business owner for the first time. "This contract is worth $40,000 annually to my company, and according to my accountant, if I were to terminate it, Sterling Associates would struggle to find replacement services at this quality level. Your boss might wonder why we're suddenly unavailable." His face went pale. "You wouldn't what? Exercise my rights as a business owner? Make decisions about my own company?" I smiled sweetly. "Isn't that exactly what you told me to do? Take control of my own life?" Before he could respond, my phone rang. Perfect timing. "Excuse me?" I answered it. "Margaret?" "Yes, the papers are signed." "Jennifer's building?" "Yes, I own it now." "Tomorrow?" "That should be fine for the rent increase discussion." I hung up and watched Marcus process what he'd just heard. "Rent increase?" he whispered. "Well, Jennifer's boutique has been paying below market rates for years. As the new owner, I think it's time to bring the rent in line with current Dallas commercial real estate values. I'm thinking, about triple the current amount should be fair." Marcus grabbed the wall for support. "Mom, you can't do this. Jennifer's business can't afford." "Can't afford market rates? Then perhaps she should find a different location. I hear there are some lovely spaces available in the less desirable parts of town."
"Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice cracking. I stepped closer to him, my voice dropping to just above a whisper. "Because, Marcus, you taught me something very valuable. You taught me that family loyalty is meaningless. You taught me that kindness is weakness. You taught me that when someone shows you who they really are, you should believe them." I didn't mean, "Oh, but you did mean it. Every word. And now I'm simply responding in kind." I closed my portfolio and straightened my jacket. "You called me a burden, a dead weight dragging down your life. Well, this dead weight just became your boss." I started to walk away, then turned back. "Oh, and Marcus, I'll be moving out of the house this weekend. Since I'm co-owner, I'll be taking my half when I sell. The market's quite good right now. I should clear about $200,000 from my portion. I hope you and Jennifer can afford the remaining mortgage payments on your combined income."
His face went white as the reality hit him. Without my investment account helping with expenses, without the house value I'd helped create, without the indirect income from my business contracts, Marcus and Jennifer's comfortable lifestyle was about to become much less comfortable. "And one more thing," I said, pausing at the elevator. "Jennifer's boutique lease expires at the end of this month. As her new landlord, I've decided not to renew. She has 30 days to find a new location." The elevator doors closed on Marcus's stunned expression, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: the intoxicating rush of true power. 3 months later, I sat in my penthouse apartment, sipping morning coffee and watching the Dallas skyline come alive in the golden sunrise. The view was breathtaking, something I never could have appreciated from Marcus's guest room. My phone had been ringing constantly for weeks. Marcus called daily, his voice growing more desperate each time. Jennifer had tried everything from tears to threats to manipulative messages sent through the grandchildren. But I'd learned something valuable about boundaries. Once you establish them, maintaining them gets easier. The consequences of their cruelty had unfolded exactly as I'd orchestrated. Jennifer's boutique had closed after she couldn't find affordable alternative space in time. The financial strain of higher rent, combined with the lost income, had forced them to put the house on the market. My half of the sale had netted me exactly what I'd predicted: $203,000. Sterling and Associates had initially tried to find a new cleaning service, but after 3 companies failed to meet the standards my team had set, they'd come crawling back. I'd graciously renewed the contract, at a 30% higher rate, of course. Margaret visited that morning, as she did every Tuesday, bringing fresh flowers from her garden and updates on the family drama I'd left behind. "Marcus called me again yesterday," she said, arranging white roses in my crystal vase. "He's asking if I'll talk to you about reconciling." "And what did you tell him?" "I told him that some words can't be taken back, and some actions have permanent consequences." Margaret settled into the chair across from me. "How are the girls handling everything?" That was the only part of this situation that caused me genuine sadness. Sophia and Grace had been innocent victims in their parents' poor choices. "I've started a college fund for each of them," I said quietly. "When they turn 18, they'll have full scholarships waiting, completely independent of their parents. They deserve better than what Marcus and Jennifer can provide." Margaret nodded approvingly.
And your business? Thriving. I've hired 6 more employees and landed contracts with 3 additional firms downtown. Turns out, when you stop letting people take you for granted, you discover just how valuable you really are. The doorbell rang, and I wasn't surprised to see Marcus standing in my hallway when I opened the door. He looked haggard, thinner, older, worn down by months of financial stress and the reality of his choices. "Mom, please, we need to talk." I didn't invite him in, but I didn't close the door either. "What is it, Marcus?" "I was wrong. We were wrong. Jennifer and we made a terrible mistake. We want you to come back home." Home. The word almost made me laugh. Which home would that be? The one you sold, or the apartment you're renting now? His shoulders sagged. "Mom, I'm sorry. I was stressed about money, and Jennifer was pregnant again. We found out last week, and I said things I didn't mean." Pregnant. Another grandchild I would love from a distance. Another innocent life affected by their parents' poor choices. You said exactly what you meant, Marcus. You called me a burden. You told me I was dragging down your life. You ordered me to leave. My voice remained steady, calm. The only thing you're sorry about is that your burden turned out to be your boss. That's not true. It is true, Marcus. If I were still the helpless old woman you thought I was, you wouldn't be standing here. You're here because you need something from me. My money, my business connections, my half of a house that no longer exists. I stepped back slightly. But I don't need anything from you anymore. Tears ran down his face. Real tears, not the manipulative kind Jennifer might have coached him to produce. "You're my mother. I love you."
I loved you too, Marcus. More than my own life. But love without respect is just enabling, and I'm done enabling your cruelty. What can I do? How do I fix this? The question hung in the air between us. Part of me, the mother part that would always love the little boy he'd been, wanted to forgive everything. But the woman I'd become, the one who'd finally learned her own worth, knew better. "You can't fix this," I said gently. "Some things, once broken, can't be repaired. You can only learn from them and do better with the next generation." I reached into my purse and pulled out 2 envelopes. These are for Sophia and Grace, college funds, like I mentioned to Margaret. When they turn 18, they'll have choices you never gave me. The choice to be independent, to be valued, to never settle for being called a burden by people who should love them. Marcus took the envelopes with shaking hands. "Mom." "Take care of yourself, Marcus. And take better care of your family than you took care of me." I closed the door softly and walked back to my window where the morning sun painted everything in shades of gold and possibility. My phone buzzed with a text from Rosa about a new potential client, and I smiled as I typed back my response. Margaret was right. Some words couldn't be taken back, and some actions had permanent consequences. But sometimes those consequences revealed strength you never knew you had. I wasn't anyone's burden anymore. I was Emery Harrison, businesswoman, property owner, survivor, and I was finally free. The son who told me I was a burden had learned the hard way that burdens don't become bosses by accident.